during the course of this meeting if you so desire. And next we'll begin with the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. The consent agenda is, for this part of the meeting, is as follows. Item D, approval of minutes of regular meeting on November 17, 2014, as on file in the city clerk's office. And item E, approval of minutes of work session on November 24th, 2014, as on file in the city clerk's office. And I assume no one would like an item removed, so if we could have a motion, please.
Mayor, I move that consent agenda items D and E be approved.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, that consent agenda items D and E be approved. Is there discussion on the motion? And your vote, please. And that motion carries 7-0. Fire away.
Mayor, I move that the certificate of election of the November 4th, 2014 general election as certified by the county clerk be received and placed on file.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, that the certificate of election of the November 4th, 2014 general election as certified by the county clerk be received and placed on file. Is there any discussion on that motion? And your vote, please. That motion carries 7-0.
Mayor, I move that the following public officials' bonds be received and placed on file. Mayor Stan Worth, CNA Surety. Council members Dwight Party, State Farm Insurance. Robert Morgan, RLI Insurance. Rick Clayball, RLI Insurance. And Joe Billsbach, CNA Surety.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, that the following public officials' bonds be received and placed on file. Mayor Stan Worth, CNA Surety. Council members Dwight Party, State Farm Insurance. Robert Morgan, RLI Insurance. Rick Claybaugh, RLI Insurance. And Joe Billsbach, CNA Surety. Is there any discussion on that motion from the council, from the audience? And your vote, please. That motion carries 7-0. And Council Member Catlin, I'll recognize you.
Alrighty. Mayor, we'd like to present some special going away gifts for you.
You didn't have to go to the Dollar General store for that.
We couldn't come up with that much money. First off, we'd like to present you with this plaque in grateful appreciation, your outstanding service and leadership to the citizens of the city of Beatrice. As council member First Ward from 1994 to 2002, and mayor from 2002 to 2014. Mayor, we thank you very much for your service, and this will be the first time in my political career that you won't be on the same board, either a council member or mayor. That's the first time. So we're going to miss you.
You're
First
in for a good experience.
First off, we couldn't get this filled up with anything because we can't have any alcohol in here. So once you get the towels out, you'll be able to fill that up with your favorite drink.
Bruce, don't pay attention to this.
And as always, our going away gifts that Councilman Party got for Christmas a couple years ago. So we thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to clear my hall out of here. I do appreciate the chance to serve with all you fellas over the last number of years, and some of you that aren't here anymore. Enjoy the time, and I wish you all well. Hopefully the next 2 to 4 years are better than the last 12 years. Not to say the last 12 were bad years, but I always like to be an optimist. Things can always improve, and always like to think that the future is going to be better. So good luck again to all of you. And I'm going to step aside, and I think Linda's going to administer the oath of office.
I can have the newly elected mayor, Stan Worth, and the council members, Joe Billsbach, and Dwight Party, and Rick Claybaugh, and Robert Morgan, and Dennis Rennie, the airport authority board member, come forward.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation or for purposes of evasion, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the office of mayor according to law and to the best of my ability. And I do further swear that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or violence, and that during such time as I am in this position, I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or violence, so help me God.
I'll just sign it.
Just join the Marines.
All right. Thank you, sirs.
Four more years.
Yeah.
First of all, I would also like to congratulate Dennis on a long and tremendous term as mayor, and with the public service that you have offered to the city for countless years as being on the Planning and Zoning Commission, on the City Council, and mayor. So again, thank you for your service. You bet. Appreciate your help too. Also want to recognize some people that are in attendance, some of my family members, my wife, of course, Cheryl, who has supported me in a lot of different ways and has always supported my jubilation over different things that have happened, and also has to listen to some of those things that don't turn out so well. So I appreciate everything that she does for me. Also, our youngest daughter is with us, Tiffany Quick, and her husband, Mike. Tiffany, you want to raise your hand? And Mike. And two granddaughters, Chloe and Addison. Thank you for coming. Also want to thank the voters of the community of Beatrice for the faith that they have in me, and I really appreciate the support and hope that in every possible way that I can do the best possible job. The first item on the agenda is the election of council president. And you folks, I'm sure, have discussed who your next council president is going to be. So are there any nominations for council president?
Mayor.
Ted? Mr. Fairbanks?
I'd like to nominate David Catlin.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that David Catlin be nominated as council president. Any other nominations? Seeing none, and I don't think that we have to do a written ballot since there's only one candidate for it. So I would ask for, it's been moved, who moved this? Ted? And who seconded it? Rich? That the nominations of council president cease and that the names of P.D. Catlin be voted on by roll call vote. Or, sorry, not roll call vote.
Ready for a vote? You vote?
I'm ready for the vote. All right, I'm new at this. And that vote is approved on a count of 7-0.
8.
I beg your pardon, 8-0. Congratulations, David.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilman or citizen so requests, and reads the following. A, approve the agenda as submitted. B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting, with the exception of items D and E, which has already been approved. Item F, approval of the treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $339,734.03. Item G, approval of Boswell report of claims in the amount of $35,769.64. Item H, approval of change order number 3, increase in the amount of $2,387.06 for a total contract price of $1,293,512.17 to Elkhorn West Construction for the library renovation project. Item I, approval of change order number 1, decrease in the amount of $6,393.22 for a total contract price of $51,450.53 to R.L. Tiemann Construction for the miscellaneous contract repair project 2014. Item J, approval of change order number 2, decrease in the amount of $4,500 for a total contract price of $46,950.53 to R.L. Tiemann Construction for the miscellaneous concrete repair project 2014. Item K, resolution number 5706, executing the comprehensive annual banner permit to the State Department of Roads, State of Nebraska Department of Roads. Item L, resolution number 5707, entering into a farm lease with Larry Delabar for pasture to the southwest of the current landfill. Item M, approval of special designated liquor license application of Community Players, Inc. for the Cabaret fundraiser event on January 10th, 2015, from 7 p.m. until 11 p.m. at the Community Players Theater, 412 Ella Street, with an alternate date of January 15th, 2015. And item N, approval of special designated liquor license application of CNC Processing for a tasting event at 2312 North 6th Street on December 12, 2014, from 8 a.m. until 1 a.m. Are there any items that anyone wants removed from the agenda, from the consent agenda? Anyone from the audience?
Mayor, I move that all the items listed under the consent agenda, with the exceptions of items D and E, previously considered, be approved, accepted, and or ratified as presented.
Is there a second? Seconded by Claybaugh. Any further discussion? Your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Next on the agenda is a public hearing on the acquisition of real property described as Lot 1, Block 4, second addition to South Beatrice, located at 401 South 10th Street. That public hearing is now open. Mr. Templemeyer?
Yes, this is a property that's currently in foreclosure by Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo contacted the city and Habitat for Humanity to see if we were interested in them donating the property to us. I spoke with Alan Gorell, Habitat for Humanity, thank you. And they stated they were not interested in the property. Wells Fargo will be donating the property to the city, plus giving us $5,000. The property is a house that was built in about 1900. Our intention is to demolish the house. It's on about 10th and Scott Street, the southwest corner. So that's how it came about, and that's our intentions with the property.
Will $5,000 take care of the demolition?
Demolition costs have been averaging probably about 7 to 8. Depends on how much asbestos is enclosed inside the building, but that's probably a pretty safe guess. It's about 7,000 or 8,000.
It's a small structure. And I'm assuming that it has, it's a story and a half. It's a half story on one side. It's a small structure, and I'm assuming that there's no basement under it.
Not that I'm aware of, but obviously we don't know until we get inside of it. There's a detached garage, 2-stall garage in the back.
But for the council, I mean, in the years past, we've discussed about somewhere down the road, possibly acquiring all the right-of-way to widen Scott Street. This would be one of those pieces of property that we'd have to acquire if we were going to do that. If you move to the block between 8th and 9th on Scott, those lots are vacant. I think we own one of those. I think the city owns one of those, the other ones they don't, but, you know, we've tried to kind of push back on any building structures there because Scott Street it'd be beneficial to have Scott Street widened, so this is just one small step in it, but I would urge you to all support this.
Any further comments, discussion? Anyone from the audience? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, I move that the public hearing be closed at 7:17 PM.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved or seconded by Fairbanks or Cook? Thank you. Your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Next, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 5708, acquiring the property at 401 South 10th Street.
Mayor, I move that resolution number 5708 be passed and adopted.
Or second?
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook. Any further discussion? And your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Further consideration on Resolution 5704, entering into 2 contracts with Landis Gear Technology, a master purchase and services agreement, and a command center managed service package to implement an automatic meter infrastructure system as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
This was the motion that was brought up at the last board meeting. There was a motion to postpone action to this. That's why we don't need a motion to approve it tonight, just discussion and
Just further consideration.
just further
Right,
consideration.
right. Comments? Phil?
I'll start this out. I was sitting on the fence if I was going to do this or not, because it is $2 million. Coming home tonight, they're talking on the radio about energy costs, maybe with all the green things that Mr. Obama wants to do, President Obama, that we could be raising our energy costs by 14 to 18% over the next few years. So having have said that, I think we really would be remiss if we did not do this system where Pat Feist could start shedding off some of this extra energy. And also with that, I would like to ask Pat to start looking at our infrastructure system. He's been working on it now. It's a 4 kVA system through quite a bit of the town. I'd like him to start really pushing and to move it to a 12 kVA system so we get a lot more of our inherent losses through transmission dropped, which would really pay for itself quickly. He has some excess money maybe in his account he could look at that, at doing. So I'd put a charge to the Board of Public Works with Mr. Vertrosky out there that they really start looking at building up the KVAs on our primary service.
Thank you, Phil. Rick?
You know, after Pat and Steve had told us that we'd have a payout within 6.5 years, I was thinking, God, that 6.5 years seems coincidentally the same number of years it's going to take when we're going to start doing the landfill. And thinking, okay, if we get this payback in 6.5 years, 7 through 20 years will amount to around $20 million just in simple math, not considering anything else. But that will that'll help a lot for the landfill. So I'm even more excited after it came up with the load management savings that we're going to have from that. So I'm in favor of a lot more than what I was to start with. Ted and I had talked about it earlier and thinking, oh my God, $2 million. It'll take years to be able to pay that back, but now it's a different story. So I'm definitely in favor of it now too.
Ted?
I'm still struggling with it. I'm struggling with and I'm not even struggling with the $1.9 million cost. I mean, they're not asking for it all up front, and I get that. I guess what I struggle with is kind of the lack of information, and maybe is because I haven't been through the discussion process like the Board of Public Works has, you know, over the year that they were working on this. And Tobias did explain that to me, but maybe I'm struggling with it simply by the way it was kind of sold to us or presented to us. I guess presented to us, and because I felt like as a body it was kind of being sold to us, and so I'm struggling with it. So I do have a couple other questions. Pat came and at the last meeting explained that he'd have a cost savings of approximately $20,000 a month, or that's what he estimated, and that it shortened down the rate of it because when, like Rick said, when he and I first spoke about this, and when it was first given to us, and it was a 12 to 14 year payback, I looked at it, and maybe my math isn't as strong as it should have been at that point, but I couldn't figure out how it would even be paid for in that time period. I mean, I didn't see where the cost savings were. We talked about reduction of a staff member or two that are meter readers that won't be needed, but then in further discussions, that really wasn't happening. They would probably just be reassigned, so you're not really losing any employees. And I've gotten that over my terms here. We've implemented computer software, and they've said, this saves us a lot of man hours, but there's no reduction in staff. And well, this is going to make everything quicker, and so we be able to put more men on the street, and the overtime doesn't get reduced. And so I guess I'm a bit jaded, I guess. And so if Don has, if you don't mind, Mayor, if you don't mind, if I can just ask Don Petrosky a couple of quick questions, because their board discussed this, the BPW board discussed this a lot more than we did.
Don, can you come up? Sure. Thank you.
And not that I think this is probably going to pass with or without me. I don't. But I would like to be as supportive as I can. I just have those concerns.
So what are your questions of Don?
Do you need to introduce yourself?
I'll introduce myself, Don Petrosky, 2021 Jefferson, serving as chairman of the Board of Public Works.
Well, Don, I went through the Board of Public Works minutes as best as I could, and near as I can tell, there really wasn't any concerns by anybody in your.
Well, we've been talking about it for a good period of time, and it was just a matter of getting some figures to know how it started was we didn't know what it was going to cost or who was the best vendor for the purpose of what we were trying to use. And the staff went in and searched and visited with other communities across here in Nebraska and also out of state. And the firm of Landis Gear came up as floated to the top of the list.
So was the BPW, was your board surprised at the overall cost?
No, because we figured that it was going to be expensive from what we were told, and that also we've been starting to set back some funds to help pay for that.
Okay. So were any of the concerns that I brought up, were any of those addressed, or were any of those concerns the same concerns of any of your board members?
We looked at it. One of the things that we looked at, Ted, was that one was the accuracy of the meters, and this is on the electrical side. This didn't, the water we're working in too with that. But on the electrical side, we've been informed of one, that if there is a power outage out in an area of a community, Pat and his crew can take a look at the grid and see, if there's other places around that same area that are reporting or could be out of power, to where they could actually pinpoint it a little bit more accurately to be a little quicker response. And then also with if someone is unfortunately late or shut off, they can do that from the service center.
Yeah. All the things that Pat explained that the system does are all quality things and things that I'd like to see implemented. I'm just not sure if I'd like to see them implemented at 1.9 million. So my last question.
Well, Ted, excuse me. The 1.9 is going to be spread out between the water department and the electric department. I mean, it's not all going in, because in the water department, the meters can be now read.
Yeah, it doesn't change the fact that it all comes from the same ratepayers, and those are all the citizens of Beatrice that I answer to. So my question is this, and either Don can answer or maybe Tobias, or Stan, you want to chip in. My question is Pat presented to us at the last meeting that through his figures, it had gone from 12 to 14 years down to 6 to 6.5. how do we know if that's, obviously you won't know until the metering system's in place, but how do we know if that's really the case? I mean, how do we know that that's what, after this is done, how do we know that we're really saving $20,000 a month? And if we're not, then what do we do? Then, because it goes from 6.5 back to the 10 or 12.
If I'm understanding your question, it's how do we measure it post-implementation?
Correct.
Okay. What we can do is obviously we can look and see what our load is in after it's implemented versus what it was implemented beforehand. Now, weather will be a factor, and so you can't compare apples to apples necessarily month to month, but we've got enough data where we have some good idea of what our load was before and what, with the new system, Pat and his guys were able to do afterwards.
Right.
From there, you can look at what your MPPD bill is and see what was your charges then, what were your charges now, and get a fairly good idea of the actual savings once you move forward.
Right, and I understood that. I understood that when Pat explained it, and now if you explain it to me again. My question is this, what if there isn't the $20,000 savings that he's assuming we're going to have? What do you do? What's plan B? Back to the 10 to 12 or 14 years to pay for the program?
Yes, if the voltage control doesn't pan out the way we figure that it will, yes, then you're probably back to the 10 or 12. You're looking at reduction in staff. You're looking at the management outage. Those types of things is what you're looking at to recoup your cost.
Okay, so if Pat's educated guess is incorrect, and I appreciate that. So my question is this: is that going to come back to us, or is that going to come back to the Board of Public Works and saying, it wasn't the cost savings we thought it were? We want to go to Plan B, and this is what we're going to do, or do you intend to just do that without us?
And do what?
You're just going to go back to what that's not the cost savings that we're going to have to look at staff reduction. We're going to have to look at these other things to recoup our costs that we assume we're going to have with the voltage savings.
We figure once the system is put in place, you'll have the reduction in staff.
Okay.
That's going to occur. The outage management and those types of things will only occur if there's a storm event or something of that nature, and obviously we can't control those, nor will we create one in order to save some money. That wouldn't make much sense. But yes, we will continue to monitor and see what the payout is, and certainly can report that back to the board and the council and let you know where we're at in the timeline. Obviously, we'll need to wait until we have the system fully implemented, which is a 3-year implementation cycle at this point. Would not be feasible to come back after year 1 and try to report where we're at, because there's only so much Pat can do with the system after year 1 or year 2.
Well, that's on somebody else, because I don't think in year 3 I'm going to be here. So.
Well, the thing of it is, Ted, if the amount is 1.9,
Right.
that is what we have to base our budgetary purposes for, and that's what that amount will be. And hopefully, with that investment, that Pat can handle, because we pay MPPD for peak amount of power.
Right.
And this will help us manage that load at a peak amount.
Yeah.
So we don't
All
have.
that I got.
And so that will come after the fact. But the base price is the base price.
Okay.
Well, even over the years on the technology, we've taken chances over the years. There's unknowns to everything. I mean, 15 years ago, nobody wanted to mess with a computer, and now we can't do anything without a computer. There's always an unknown. But
It's been longer than 15.
not for me. I don't even own an iPhone. But, we've got 2 gentlemen back there that we pay them pretty good money, so we must consider that they're fairly bright and know what they need, and they've come to us and they say this is the way to go. $20 million savings, hopefully, if everything goes right. There's a lot we can do with that money in the future. So if Jack and Steve, I rely on them. They're the guys. I rely on them. I don't need to know the
Rich,
technical
I appreciate
stuff.
those comments, because being on the board for the years that I have, I've established a lot of faith to our department heads.
Well-
They manage those departments, and as we come into budgetary purposes, I mean, there is no fluff in the budgets. What they come in is rock bottom, and what they say they need, we try to strive as a board to accommodate those needs, because we know they need it.
Well, if the council tried to keep everything in their heads that the supervisors know, we have had headaches a lot, so. If those two guys are on board with this, I'm gonna go for it. It just, technology, we gotta stay up with it, or we will fall behind, and, God, I hate saying that. I just really do hate saying that.
Any other questions of Don?
No.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
All right. This is further consideration of this ordinance 5704. Any discussion from those in the audience? And then back to the council. Entertain a motion to approve ordinance 5704. I beg your pardon. It's been seconded. The motion has been made and seconded. All we do now is need to vote. So your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Next is a resolution entering into a Southeast Region 9/11 Emergency Communications Study interlocal agreement.
Mayor, I move that resolution number 5709 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
This is just an extension of what we've done in the past, isn't it?
Well, it's a little different. It's a next step in the process. We have a regional committee that is reviewing and coming up with a plan to replace the 911 telephone system because of some problems with that hardware in that phone system. That problem is shared by all of southeast Nebraska, some 14 counties. We have a interlocal agreement that you approved some time back that allowed us to hire a consultant, and that consultant then put together a request for proposals and has distributed that. That's not an entity, it's just a group, and it doesn't have any authority to move forward. This interlocal will give us the authority to take the next step, which is to review the request for proposals, pick a vendor, and come up with a funding mechanism in which to go forward after we know exactly who it is we're going to deal with and what it's going to cost and how we're going to pay for it. It's very important note in there that anybody that's a part of this agreement, including us, can choose to back out of the agreement once the dollar amount's determined and the funding mechanism is determined. So nobody is hostage to this agreement if it comes that they don't like the terms, the methodology, or whatever. And so each board in this 14-county region that has what's called a PSAP, which is a public safety answering point, which is commonly known as the dispatch center. Each one that has this, their boards are, whether it be city or county, whatever their entity is looking at that. And with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Chief Lang?
Edwin?
So if one town or entity does opt out of that, so the option would be to forget everything, or the 13 remaining would increase their?
Yeah, it would simply be opting out of this for the bigger players like us and Lincoln. It's not an option. This has got to. We've got to fix this. We've got to find the best vendor and the best way to pay for it. The more people we have to share that cost, the better it's going to be. But we also know that there are places that are suspicious of these kind of things, and if they think they're signing into an unknown cost, they would be reluctant to do it, and then we couldn't get the RFP. We couldn't get to step 2. You will have the opportunity to vote on step 3 when we get to it, which would be what it's going to cost, how we're going to pay for it, that kind of thing.
Rich?
At this time, we're still paying this through just the surcharge that we put on the phones, or that's how we did it when I was on the last.
This is a
time.
totally different deal.
Okay.
This is totally different from how we fund dispatch center. This is just a separate problem. And without going into and taking everybody's time, every county right now, every PSAP has a phone box that runs the 911 phones through it. Well, as you mentioned before about technology has improved, and now we can do all of this with one box for all these 14 counties. So we'll want to have one box, and then we'll want to have a backup box someplace in case that one quits. But we can all share that. And so, including us, Lincoln, I mean, it can handle a lot of things. But we've got to get to that part to figure out who the vendor is, what it's gonna cost, what it's gonna cost individuals. It doesn't have anything to do with the 911 phone surcharge or any of those kind of things we deal with before. This is kind of its own separate committee that we got together to explore this.
Bob?
So has the RFP already been sent out?
Yes, the RFP is out, and we're waiting now for them to come back in, and we'll make there's a subcommittee that's going to review them, and they'll whittle it down, and then the full body with them would pick one.
So does that committee typically then maybe go, I mean, I'm thinking, for some entities, you always go with the low bid, and that may not be the best solution. So is there like a checklist that they're going to check out?
Yes,
solution?
that's why we hired the consultant. We paid $50,000 for a consultant because this is a big technical thing. And that's a great point, is this will not be low bid.
Okay.
I can tell you that right up front. This will not be low bid. This will be best bid because it's technology, and that's just the way you have to do technology.
Completely understand.
Can we do that? I thought anything over 20,000 or 30,000, we had to take low bid,
We'll be all
but
right.
not on this? Okay.
Any other questions? Any from the audience?
Thank you.
I'd ask for your vote on Resolution 5709. And that is approved 8-0. Resolution number 5709 has been adopted. Next on the agenda is the ordinance to convey interest on two properties located along Hoyt Street and along Railroad Street to the Enns Family Trust.
Mayor, I move the said ordinance be given number 14-031. The title therefore be approved. The rules be suspended and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
It's been moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, to read 3 times tonight, ordinance number 14-031. Sorry. First of all, we have to vote on the suspension of the rules. And that is approved 8-0. I'll read ordinance number 14-031 by number only the first time. Second, and ordinance number 14-031 by number the second time, and ordinance number 14-03 by number the third time.
Mayor, I move that ordinance number 14-031 be passed and approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Your vote, please. Seconded by Cook, beg your pardon. Your vote, please. Discussion?
If you look in your packet on page 92 and 93, it gives you a map of the area we're talking about. And what these are 2 parcels of real estate that the owners are looking to transfer them to somebody else. And we're not party to that, so I'm not sure who's transferring it to who. But Nebraska Title Company contacted the city. The past legal descriptions on these parcels were poorly written over the years. They'd go the wrong direction at times. So instead of turning east, they turned west, or north, they turned south. And so the legal descriptions were a little messed up. And so Nebraska Title came to us and asked if the city be willing to basically deed any interest we have in the property to the new buyers. And we went through, we looked at the properties, we surveyed them, and we do not believe we have any interest in either one of the 2 parcels they're looking to transfer. So in essence, you're signing a deed to give interest away in a property that you don't have. But that helps them clean up title as they pass on title to the next owner.
The easements are all okay.
Easements remain in place. We'll keep those if there are any. But other than that, that's what you're being asked to do tonight.
I would just add, in addition, one of the other reasons we were approached is we do specifically own properties, and I can point them out to you if you'd like, that are adjacent to these properties. But as was stated by Mr. Templemeyer, we had our engineering department independently go in and map out the original legal descriptions and then the new ones that were surveyed by Chris Witulski. And we don't believe the 2 very small properties that we have that are adjacent to these are included. And one of them is specifically noted as that deed is not included. And so that's an additional reason we were approached, is due to the fact we do own very, very small properties. And if you'd like, I can point those out. On page 92, close to the bottom there, if you're reading it as the word ends property is facing you correctly, there's a small rectangle to the southwest of that property. That's a parcel that we own for some reason or another that's not almost, I don't even believe it's accessible at this point. And then on page 93, the property that's adjacent to Hoyt Street and is divided by Indian Creek, we own a portion of property. It's in the shape of a triangle there towards the bottom, a little bit hard to see, of what essentially is Indian Creek. And those are the two adjacent properties that we own specifically, and so that was another reason we were approached by Nebraska Title. But once again, we independently reviewed these legal descriptions. The original ones were very poorly written, and the new surveyed ones we believe are correct and accurate and do not include any of our interests. And we also specifically requested that any easements that we contain continue to be retained.
Any other discussion, comments? Anybody from the audience? Seeing none, your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Ordinance number 14-031 has been approved. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance establishing various salary for city employees.
Mayor, I move that said ordinance number be given number 14-032. The title therefore be approved, the rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Cook. And your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Ordinance number 14-032 by number the first time. Ordinance number 14-032 the second time, and ordinance number 14-032 a third and final time.
Mayor, I move that ordinance number 14-032 be passed and approved.
Second.
Seconded by Party. And your vote, please.
Discussion.
And discussion.
As we're required.
Keep me honest, will you, Rich?
Every year, the city council has to pass an ordinance that sets forth everybody's salary, and that's what you have before you tonight. We have included the COLA raises that were agreed to in both the fire and police department union contracts. Those are represented in here. The non-union employees have a 2% COLA as well. The other employees that are governed either by the NAPE or IBEW have no COLA raises in here because those contracts have not yet been decided at this time. If and when those contracts are decided, as normal practice, those will be backdated to October 1st of this year, and they'll be paid back wages from that date forward. So that's what's in this ordinance before you tonight.
Further comments?
Are we negotiating with didn't they miss their?
We're
Their
meeting
date?
with them tomorrow. We have another meeting with them tomorrow, so.
And there really isn't a timeline, is there?
No.
Yeah. You just have to make it retroactive, whatever they agree upon.
Well, that's where I have a problem. If they weren't, they should have been on time, they should have got their, and now we have to go back and retroactive them because of their miscue. That's a little problem with me, but that's okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Anyone from the audience?
I apologize, Toby, I should have talked to you before on this, but didn't get there.
And your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Ordinance number 14-032 has been passed and adopted. Next item on the agenda is the public forum. Public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the City Council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the City Council at this time. Is there anything for the public forum? Okay, anything else? Tobias?
Nope.
One thing that was on the agenda, and I think Doug reported it this morning, that one was the appointment of city department heads. And that was pulled from the agenda by me and there was a subsequent agenda sent out. And I don't know that you got it on time, but because you reported it this morning, I heard it this morning. But I do have some comments about that, and the reason why I pulled it off the agenda, I think everybody needs to know about it. You know, since I'm the new mayor, I also think it's necessary that not only do I visit with all the department heads, but I feel comfortable with their positions and what they do. I've met with most department heads. There are some that I have not met with yet. And so I've prepared some comments, and I'm going to read those comments verbatim, so there's no confusion. And so there is a total transparency. Pursuant to Section 2-37 of the Beatrice Municipal Code, the mayor, with the consent and approval of the city council, shall appoint all officers of the city whom he is directed to appoint by ordinance, resolution, or general law. Pursuant to state law, all appointed officers shall hold their respective positions until the end of the mayor's term, which is tonight. Mayor Schuster's term ended tonight. These positions include, among others, the city administrator, city clerk, city treasurer, city engineer, and city attorney, among others. As your newly elected mayor, I always want to do what's best in the interest of the city of Beatrice. Given that this evening represents my first opportunity to serve as mayor of this great community, and I've not had the opportunity to thoroughly review the respective appointed positions, the duties and performance of those individuals currently holding those appointed positions. I intend to review these appointed positions and related matters in the coming weeks, and in consultation with the city council, intend to bring forward resolutions announcing the appointments for these positions in the coming weeks. While the terms of these appointed positions have now ended, until my appointments are made and an affirmative vote is taken by the council, the individuals currently holding these appointed positions are invited to remain on an at-will basis, with the understanding that the terms of these appointed positions will not commence until resolutions appointing individuals recommended by me have been approved by the city council. So I hope that that clears that matter up. Kind of a long dissertation of why I pulled it off the agenda, but that's why. And if you gentlemen need a copy, I've got a copy of that also. With that said, our next regular city council meeting is December 15th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in this office. And our work session will be December 22nd at 7 o'clock in this office also. Gentlemen, I look forward to working with all of you for the next 4 years. Those of you that are going to be here for 4 years, and look forward to progressing the city of Beatrice and move it forward. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I move that the meeting be adjourned at 7:49 p.m.
Is there a second? Second. Clayball, was that you? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Your vote, please. And that has